This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, could this AEW tag team be on the move? This current champion just re-upped with this company, and Mr. Sinister has passed to the great beyond. Also, we got to take a look at SummerSlam. This is a show that Doc and Jock felt very differently about. We're going to get into all that. We had some squabbles last Saturday. We'll talk about it, as well as the latest happenings in the wonderful world of wrestling. Helping me break it all down. He's the one. He's the only. He's the guy who shows up on time because somebody else is a sleepyhead. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz? Sorry for being late to the show.
No, it's all good. I was like, oh man, I wondered if Jock wanted to cancel. If he said fuck it, the SmackDown was so disturbing that he just had to take time off. Was he grieving Kevin Sullivan? I was like, okay, but I naturally assumed you slept. And hey, you can never knock someone for sleeping a little bit extra, man. We all need it. Man, with the week that we had with SummerSlam, covering the Lions, doing all the podcasts, it was a crazy week. And it started off with SummerSlam, man. I thought, look, we discussed it, we debated it. While I was in New York, you guys were hating on me. I didn't say it was a bad show. I just said that all I thought was, and we know now clearly based on how SummerSlam went, they wrote it 6 months in advance and they collectively got there. All I'm saying is they executed the plan perfectly, but along the way, they maybe could have thrown one wrinkle in there to make it not so predictable. And that's all I'm saying. I thought the matches were great. Cleveland held its own. Weather was great. It was a, babyface heavy show where a lot of pops, a lot of people were happy and satisfied with the way the matches went. I mean, you could have just had one wrinkle where maybe Bayley keeps her title, or maybe even when I was looking at it and saying, okay, how do I bring to the table something different? Maybe you just would have had Tiffany Stratton cash in and be the world champion. I know it would have been different based on the writing and things like that, but something a little bit different. But the show in and of itself was amazing. It was a spectacle, and boy, it was something where the biggest takeaway I had was I'm just not so. It's a little bit of a head scratcher in that it does feel like, okay, WrestleMania was the culmination of the finish, and this felt like a new start. But it just felt like based on all the title changes, you basically erased everything that you did at WrestleMania. It's kind of weird in that the fresh start happened. And I kind of would think that, you know what, based on, I understand how things have gone, and WrestleMania was all about Cody, but I kind of would think that WrestleMania would kind of represent that a little bit more, a fresh start. And you get Bayley losing her title, Damian Priest losing his title, and Logan Paul losing a title, the new tag champs. It felt like a fresh start.
Sami Zayn losing a title.
To me, I don't know why SummerSlam was chosen to be that reset. I kind of would say, to me, WrestleMania should be the end-all, be-all of like having a reset, and SummerSlam should kind of be used to bolster a couple people. So, and even, you know what? To be honest, you don't even need Tiffany Stratton. You just said it. You could have just simply had Sami Zayn win. Do you think Braun Breaker's going anywhere? The dude's a fucking monster. The dude is legitimately a star already. He could have taken another loss and starting to get pissed, which would have further increased his rampage on WWE. You could have set up another feud. You could have had Ilya interfere and laugh at him and take their feud to another level where you just have Braun Breaker say, Sammy, you're up next, but I got something to take care of, and he just destroys Ilya for the next 7 weeks. But hey, in the end, I graded SummerSlam a B+. It was enjoyable, and if you go back, it'll hold the test of time of a show you can go back and watch and enjoy it.
Yeah, look, I thought it was a good show. I thought they did everything that they set out to do. And like you said, all of this has been plotted. All of this has been planned. And just because it's predictable doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's bad. If it's predictable, generally, it's good storytelling. You're following along, you're connecting the dots, and you're putting stuff together. sometimes you have these retcon stories that you're just kind of like, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. In this case, it's all been laid out. And I think you're right. I think the word that you used that is 100% correct for what this show was, this was a hard reset. They punched down on the reset button and they redid a lot of things and they set up a lot of different courses to basically now get us to WrestleMania. That's why I didn't have a problem with what we seen. That's why I didn't have a problem with what we got. And that was why I was so defensive when you said that it was just so predictable. Predictability, again, isn't the worst thing if it's being done well. I think some of the execution on this predictable show wasn't necessarily great. I think some of the things that were done could have been done a little bit differently. We can kind of talk about a little bit of that. But overall, I thought this was a good show. I think it gets you to where you need to be. It helped close chapters that have been opened since, like you said, WrestleMania. And now it's opening new books and it's opening new chapters for these wrestlers and telling different stories and moving things along, creating new feuds. That's what this is all about. It's all about creating new feuds. And now we have that. And you started off with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan defeats Rhea Ripley, retains her WWE Women's Championship. Throughout the course of this match, Rhea Ripley was dealing with a supposed dislocated shoulder that was written into the storyline. So she would have something that she'd have to kind of work through while they fought. Gave Liv Morgan a bit of an edge there. Dom gets involved. I thought this was the right play. I thought this was great. Rhea ends up losing her stuff. She takes a chair. She's ready to hit Liv Morgan. Dom jumps up on the apron, grabs the chair, tells her, you can't win like this. You can't win like this. Still kind of playing that role, but also protecting Liv Morgan. A little bit sneaky, a little bit weird. Ends up getting involved with the official. Chair gets thrown back into the ring, and Liv Morgan hits her finishing move on Rhea Ripley for the 1-2-3 as Dom jumps off the apron and points back at the ref. And right there, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic story. I love this. I thought this was good. You didn't necessarily like Dom getting involved with this. Why didn't you like Dom getting involved with this match and then being this being the breaking point for him and Rhea Ripley?
Well, I looked at it like I liked Rhea and Dom. I thought the story maybe had a little bit more to tell, in regards to them taking over or maybe them kind of aligning themselves separately. But I get it. I understand in regards to the ultimate heel. We've talked about it. It wasn't a surprise. But I just would say that there was a little bit more of a layer that you could have told. But, man, Dom, what a lucky guy in regards to everything that you got going on. So it'll be a fascinating look at how everything plays out in the future. Rhea, man, she played being devastated so believable that you felt it. So it was well done, well crafted. And look, man, Liv Morgan, maybe that you could say that's a surprise. But again, it was going in that direction. The ultimate swerve by the ultimate heel, Dominic Mysterio, man. What a start to the show.
Yeah, and then after that, we got Braun Breaker, who just dispatched Sami Zayn for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. This match lasted 6 minutes. It wasn't very long. I was surprised at how short it was. I don't think there was any big surprise here. I thought this, again, right call. Sami's been doing a really good job, but you're trying to build Braun Breaker up. I get what you're saying, where Braun could have suffered a loss and would have been fine, and you could have just really revved him up even more. You remember, you got to walk that fine line when you're having guys get beat, right? At a certain point, the crowd just kind of turns on them like they're never going to win. I think this was the right call to pull it now, beat Sami Zayn. Now you can let Sami Zayn go on and do other things. It sounds like, if you watch Friday Night SmackDown, sounds like Sami Zayn's going to get his rematch with Braun Breaker, or Monday Night Raw. Sami Zayn's going to get his rematch with Braun Breaker, and then it sounds like him and Jey Uso are going to go on and challenge for the tag team belts. So there's some stuff going on here. If we're setting up for Survivor Series, maybe Sami Zayn's involved in Survivor Series with Roman Reigns. We'll see what takes place. He's a part of that original bloodline. We'll see what takes place there. Now, LA Knight ends up defeating Logan Paul for the WWE United States Championship. So speaking of things that were just a little bit wonky, speaking of execution with predictability, I had a bit of an issue with this match. I thought this was a good match. I thought LA Knight beating Logan Paul was the right call. But there was a point where you had, at the very end of the match for the finish, you had Logan Paul on the outside of the ring, use the brass knuckles on LA Knight, hits him, he falls back into the ring. Next thing you know, Logan Paul is going to hit a move on LA Knight, and LA Knight reverses it. He just got hit in the head with the brass knuckles. The brass knuckles have been something that have completely knocked guys out and has allowed Logan Paul to win. For LA Knight to essentially no-sell a move that has finished off tons of competitors, I felt like this, again, poor execution. They could have did something a little bit different. Logan Paul could have hit LA Knight, hit him. LA Knight could have staggered, stumbled, fell all the way across the ring, got down on one knee, took a breath or two, and Logan Paul himself could have took a breath or two and maybe even peacocked to the crowd a little bit and then got up to go for his move. Logan Knight could have staggered back into the middle to take the move and then reversed it. I felt like there needed to be a little bit of selling, a little bit of a break here to really kind of accentuate what just happened. I felt like the no-sell for the brass knucks just wasn't good, wasn't great execution. And this match itself at times felt a little clunky. Logan Paul, an exceptional athlete. LA Knight's a very good wrestler. He is nowhere near the athlete that Logan Paul is. So some of this match to me felt a little choppy. What did you think about the execution of the finish of this match? And what did you think about this match overall?
Yeah, it kind of had a feel of like it rushed to the ending, and it could have been told a little bit more smooth. It was kind of like, okay, boom, reversal, ending match. I liked the match. I look, that was one of the things that people wanted to pay attention to was LA Knight winning a championship. Look, man, I just thought the athleticism of Logan Paul to do that off the ropes there was spectacular. I thought it was one of the spots of the night. He's in the mix, and now we can get to the point where we don't have to call Logan Paul a part-timer. You can just say, look, this guy is part of the roster. He's made for this opportunity. He's taking it seriously. He can wrestle. So it was great in that LA Knight taking the title off of Logan Paul it felt like it meant something. So that was really cool and special, and I just enjoyed the match. And, yeah, we could just say the ending and some of the spots could have been executed a little bit better. But for LA Knight to win it, I thought it gave the crowd a nice reason to pop, and he deserved it. And it was cool to see because it was like a culmination of a year of him really grinding from last year's SummerSlam to this year's. And, and then just to, tell you guys, when he walked out on SmackDown, he wore the belt around his waist, and it looked pretty good. And if you started to notice, Cody's been unstrapping the belt a little bit and holding it like normal. So that's good. People are paying attention and saying, hey, wait a minute, you look kind of wonky the way you've been holding it. So LA Knight looks great. And I think now I do think that what a nice run of for the U.S. title to gain more legitimacy. It's getting there, and it's almost at that point when you have Logan Paul, LA Knight moving forward. I think it'll be like the Intercontinental title on Monday Night Raw. SmackDown now has its Intercontinental title. The U.S. title will have some fun now that we know who's going to fight LA Knight next.
You know what's crazy? I didn't even realize Logan Paul, I think it was 2 title defenses in his entire run as U.S. champ. So, yeah, it's going to be great to be able to see that belt again and see it being used. Yeah, that was bonkers to me when he said that. I was like, oh, my God, only two title defenses. How crazy. But after this, again, I thought it was a good match. I thought the finish was a little bit wonky. After this, we had something that kind of blew my mind. You talked about this, and if you would have just stuck with your prediction, you'd have been in a much better place. We talked about this. You wrote this. This is what you wanted. You said Nia Jax defeats Bayley to become the new WWE Women's Champion. And look, I thought this was well done. I thought this was a fantastic way to do this. I liked it a lot. It, like I said, blew my mind. This was the swerve of the night for me because going into it, I didn't think Nia Jax stood a chance. But I think coming out of this, you have to ask the question, does this title reign and does this loss, after so quickly getting this belt, does this hurt Bayley? Because Bayley just got this belt. Bayley really hasn't defended this belt. I don't know if Bayley's working through an injury or what, but Bayley, for the most part, hasn't had a ton of title defenses. I think this might have actually been Bayley's second title defense with this championship, and she goes down to Nia Jax, somebody who, in my estimation, I didn't have Nia Jax very high on the card. Apparently Triple H does, and they're going to give her a bit of a run, and hopefully this works out, and this helps get Nia Jax a little bit of legitimacy. We'll see what takes place. But does this hurt Bayley? Does this title run hurt Bayley? Because she really didn't do anything with it. She didn't feel like she was a strong champion. If anything, she felt like she held the belt for a long time, and she was just a long transitional champion. What does this title reign say about Bayley at this time?
Absolutely, I agree. It kind of, I don't think it hurts Bayley. It hurts the title. It's like, come on, Bayley. I thought was a great story to tell. I thought that Nia Jax is the perfect foil for Bayley to kind of gain a little bit of legitimacy for a title run, and then you could have even introduced, to make it even better. You could have just, at some point, I understand the affiliation with Tiff and Nia Jax. I can understand that a little bit, heels. But at the same token, you could have also ran it where Tiffany runs in and she wants to cash in, and it's a triple threat, and Bayley wins it, and you gain even a little, or you just have Bayley win. Tiff cashes in and she loses. I think that's the ultimate foil. You could run that story for the next 6 months, or something happens where she has an excuse to why she lost, and she can be whiny like a heel and stuff like that. You could have told it differently, but you look, clearly when Nia Jax returned, she had the conversation of, I'm not just coming back here to be some person. Like, I want to push. I want a Cody push. Like, give me something to work with. And Triple H is like, sure. He likes attractions. He likes something different. And I'm certain that in his mind, a heel champion at this time was the right time. I just think that we all disagree that you could have did it later in the year. There's no rush. Nia Jax is part of the roster. She's probably got a 2-3 year deal. You didn't need to rush it. You could have at least given Bayley a little bit more respect. You could have did it at Survivor Series. Just one decision. I just think that the likes of Bayley and Sami Zayn, The Miz, when they've gotten their titles, they haven't been able to. It's kind of been like, okay, you got the title, that's your cake. Now you can't have any more. It's like, no, let the man. You're allowed to have more than one cake, more than one slice if you like it. It's kind of like, here's your pat on the back, but we're not gonna give you the increased time in the VIP room. You only have 10 minutes. It's like, well, thanks for letting me in, but I kind of would like to kick my feet up and stay a little bit, have a bottle, or have some friends come over. It's kind of like, no. You get in, you get your 10 minutes, and get your ass out. It's like, it's not fair. And for Bayley, I just think she deserved better.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad because Bayley's one of those. She's one of the 4 horsewomen, right? She's one of those people that you look back on and you've helped build this company, helped build this women's division essentially on her back. Honestly, she's the only one of the 4 horsewomen who's still wrestling. Becky Lynch is off doing whatever. Mercedes Moné, a.k.a. Sasha Banks, is, in my estimation, sucking and doing the C version of Sasha Banks in AEW. And Charlotte Flair is rehabbing from her ACL injury. She should be back sometime soon, but she's still rehabbing from that. So a little bit weird for her to have this type of a title run. Hopefully it does good things for Nia Jax, and hopefully it helps elevate Nia Jax. After this, we got a match that I think all of us were looking forward to. Drew McIntyre ends up defeating CM Punk. I thought this was great storytelling. I thought CM Punk getting involved with Seth Rollins, that ends up costing CM Punk. Punk cost Punk in this match. I thought this was exceptionally well done. This helps open that door up for that Seth Rollins CM Punk feud later on. You get Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. You guys can now kind of go your own different directions if they want to do that. If they want to stay here for a little bit longer, they can. But it gives you options, which I thought was outstanding. And I thought the overarching story of this match. Also, they paid homage to, I think it was 1997, Bret Hart Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as the referee. They were all dressed similar to how those guys were dressed back in the day. They even acknowledged it on the broadcast. I thought that was really, really cool. What did you think of this match? Did you think it was good storytelling? Do you think the way that they wrote this for CM Punk to lose was done in a way where it shows that sometimes Punk just gets in his own way, and this allows him to have different options as far as the story going forward? Look,
man, credit to CM Punk. He put over Drew McIntyre, and you can tell now he doesn't care, because of the fact that, hey, if you let me be part of a good story and there's a real reason for it, then, hey, any situation. And look, it was nice to see him reconcile with Stephanie McMahon, and it just, look, CM Punk looked good. He looked fluid. The match was told well, and I think this is the best way to use CM Punk in stories. He doesn't have to be the top of the show. He got a pop. It was great, and you just kind of feel like the weight of the 10 years of toxicity that started when he left kind of has ended. He said, look, this is what I fought for. Tell stories. Make this, like, I think that CM Punk had a vision of what WWE could have been back then, and now he's seeing it done well, where like a lot of the matches had stories, there's a culmination, he has input in it, and he can put over a star, not just, hey, let's just have a match on Raw, and Drew beats me and we go to the next match. He's like, I just told a 6-month story or 9-month story from his injury at Royal Rumble, and now you can go forward and tell another story. And he looked great. He looks fluid. He looks in the best shape ever at 45. He can have a good closing run if he can stay healthy. And I think the funny part was the internet said, look, congrats to CM Punk. He had a match. He didn't get hurt. So let's just keep going with it. Let's keep going with it. That was one. Now let's get to the next one. He's part of the roster, and it only makes the company better. And good for Drew McIntyre, because I think him taking the family, jewel, the bracelet was awesome, and I just think that Drew McIntyre deserves to kind of get up there. It just kind of sucks the timing though, because nobody in their right mind believes that Drew is going to be the one to dethrone the new established WC World Champ.
Yep, and speaking of that new heavyweight world champion, that is Gunther, who ends up defeating Damian Priest. Now, Finn Balor gets involved. Like, Judgment Day completely imploded on this show. Finn Balor gets involved. He waited an entire year to get his retribution on Damian Priest. Again, Judgment Day is dead. I think, again, Gunther winning, right call. I thought this was probably the best match that Damian Priest has had as world champ.
In a loss, right. That's what I wrote. That was best match. I'm like, great. Good timing, right? The best, it's crazy, right?
It's probably his best match that he's had as the champ, and he loses. What did you think about Finn Balor interfering in this match, and what did you think of this match overall? I thought it was a little bit wonky the way Finn Balor got involved with this match with putting the foot on there. To me, normally you're expecting a bigger moment. It felt like it was kind of so subtle and just kind of out of the blue. You knew it was coming. I just thought it was a little bit weird. Again, it helped drive the story along. I just feel like they could have did it in a bit of a different way. Overall, I thought this was good. I thought it was well done. Again, Gunther winning, right call. Damian Priest, his best match as champion in the loss. What did you think about this?
Yeah, it was nice to see a little bit of some involvement from Finn Balor. Look, it kind of felt like the last couple of years he's been diminished, and the way in which they're now going to tell the story moving forward is going to be great. So Finn Balor turns on Damian Priest, the epic betrayal, the opportunity now for Damian Priest to be a babyface where people appreciate him. I just think that his first title run is kind of like one of those things where, okay, you get a taste of what it's like. Now the next go around, look, Triple H had multiple title runs. Damian Priest will as well. But he needs to also understand that now when you carry the belt, you got to carry yourself as the standard bearer of the ring. And to have his best match in a loss, it's kind of funny. But in the end, it now furthers a story where you can now sympathize with Damian Priest a little bit, and now we all want to see Priest and Finn Balor. So again, it's ending one story but beginning another, and WWE has done a spectacular job of connecting dots and reminding people that, hey, there's reasons why these things are happening, and it's been storytelling is about here's what's happened and not forgetting the past, and they've done a stellar job of linking all the pieces in such a great way that the stories all make sense. They intertwine. They have reasonings that we can pinpoint. I just remember 2 short years ago with Vince, we'd be like, why is this happening? Like, this match happened, and then it would be like, Finn Balor's now going to fight Bronson Reed. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like,
exactly.
It's like, wait a minute, didn't he just turn on Damian Priest? Well, tonight, Finn Balor's going to take on Bronson Reed. And you just would be like, huh? And it would make no sense, and then Bronson Reed would win, and then the next week Finn Balor would win, and then the next week he'd go on, and it didn't connect. It never had any beginning, middle, end, reason, nothing. It just was. It was wild in regards to that era where it kind of got 17, 18, 19 was a little bit wonky, but now you're starting to see a beginning, middle, end, reasons why the storytelling is on supercharge, and now we have another story with the destruction of the Judgment Day.
Yep. I think where we're progressing with all this, and I think the way you said it, perfect, because Vince would just pull shit out of a hat, and we'd be like, none of this makes any damn sense. You have poignant moments that you can go back to, and you're like, this is what this is built from. And I think it's fantastic. You get little nuggets now with Triple H booking, and it's so well done. It forces you to pay attention. I remember a time when we would watch wrestling and you would just watch it. It would just kind of be background noise. You just watch it. Now you actually have to pay attention to what is going on. There are things going on in the backgrounds of scenes. There are actual poignant moments from years ago that have taken place that are getting called upon for you to recall. A lot of this is being done incredibly well, and this is all at the helm of Triple H's booking. Our main event, Cody Rhodes ends up defeating Solo Sikoa to retain the WWE Undisputed Championship. This match was done in Bloodline rules, so it was an anything goes match. The big fear is Jacob Fatu may have hurt himself. Some back and forth in our group chat. I believe Jacob Fatu might have broke his leg. Kenny believes, and I think you might be in line with Kenny, this was done to keep Fatu away from Roman Reigns. So online, those same sentiments have been kicked around. This was done in a way to keep Fatu away. Fatu was incredibly upset. He looked like he tried to stand up and could not put any weight on that leg and fell right back down. He threw a couple of chairs, was incredibly upset. If anything, this is all a work, and it could be. He is an incredibly good actor. He is incredibly good at what he does. If not, he might be sidelined for a month or two, maybe 3. We'll see what takes place. Either way, Roman Reigns comes back and completely annihilates Solo Sikoa. I thought Solo Sikoa sitting like a small child at the end of it, crying and screaming no. I thought that was a fantastic way to close on him. I thought Roman Reigns looking back at Cody Rhodes, kind of acknowledging him and giving him the heads up, like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. We've got some unfinished work that we'll get back to in a little bit. I got to clean house first. I myself thought Roman Reigns looked incredible. Roman Reigns looks like a guy who took that loss to Cody Rhodes and he went away for a while. Didn't eat, didn't sleep. He came back. He looks a little bit older. He's got the gray in the beard. He looks leaner. He looks like he has basically that guy who got a divorce. And for the first 6 months, it was brutal. The guy couldn't get up off the couch, couldn't get up off the floor. He was basically eating TV dinners and then going and throwing up in the toilet. He's now back in the gym, working out. He's recomposited his body. Yeah, he looks a little bit older. Yeah, he looks a little bit grayer. He looks a little bit wiser, and he's coming back for what's his. That's what I got from Roman Reigns. I thought this was cool to see. I thought this was a lot of fun, and this was really the highlight of the evening. Roman Reigns coming back, helping Cody Rhodes defeat Solo Sikoa. I thought it was awesome. What did you think about the main event?
Yeah, look, Solo. Look, it was great to see. I just thought maybe you could have just. It was like the suspense was just right away taken away. It was a big pop. Roman comes out and immediately attacks Solo Sikoa. I maybe would have had Roman just take 2 steps towards Cody, maybe just for a half nanosecond, make people believe, wait a minute, like the reference, if you remember with the NWO, you had Bobby Heenan say, well, wait a minute, who's he with? And those questions. And you could have maybe had a little bit of intrigue, but he just went right in there and destroyed Solo Sikoa. But in the end, it was just a culmination of a huge pop. Everybody wanted to see Roman return. He returned, huge pop. Fans loved it. And the OTC is back and born. And to me, I understand the reason why you changed his entrance music, because his was a little bit plodding and too long. So this one is a little bit more upbeat and intense. So I can understand it. I agree with it. And now we have a great story to tell for the future. The Civil War in the Bloodline has now begun, and it's a little bit more believable. It just sucks that Jacob Fatu maybe is going to miss the early part, but it's not that big a deal because, yeah, you do got to kind of keep Fatu away from Roman Reigns for the time being and kind of connect the dots a little bit in a different way. So I'm excited. I thought SummerSlam lived up to it. Cody Rhodes definitely held his own and defeated Solo Sikoa. He's the main event. And he's on to new and fresh challenges. And
that wrapped up that pay-per-view. Look, I thought it was well done. I thought it was really, really good. We checked calling the card. I take the point. I predicted everything right except for Nia Jax. Like I said, if you would have stuck with your original thought on Nia Jax, would have did you so much justice. I lead you now by 4 points, 7.5 to 3.5. Let's get into what took place on Monday Night Raw. Bronson Reed ends up taking out Seth Rollins with 6 tsunamis. This was done to write off a banged-up Seth Rollins. You could kind of tell Seth Rollins walking out to the ring. He looked a little bit slow, looks a little bit beat up. I guess the word is if he had to wrestle, he could wrestle. but this is going to give him some time to heal up 100%. I think maybe he might have came back a little bit too early from that knee injury at WrestleMania. For some reason, they wanted to get him involved with everything that took place at SummerSlam. Again, I think that's just to open up the possibility and to be able to write him into whatever's going on with CM Punk. The big question coming out of Bronson Reed taking out Seth Rollins, forcing him to cough up blood, and them writing Seth Rollins out. Is this the jump-off point for Bronson Reed's WWE career? Bronson Reed is a guy who has been an incredibly mid-card talent, and not even upper mid-card, like lower mid-card. A guy who will come out, will have a match with somebody, and then next thing you know, you don't see him for weeks. And then you'll see him for 2 or 3 weeks. He'll beat up a guy like Sheamus. He'll beat up a guy like Butch, and then he'll beat somebody else up, and then you don't see him. He has had really no direction since he's come back to WWE. If you remember in NXT, he was a big deal. Got called up to the main roster. Vince didn't really know what to do with him. He goes away for a little bit, goes to New Japan, does a lot of great things in New Japan. WWE then offers him a contract, comes back, and he's kind of been bouncing between mid-card and lower mid-card and really hasn't had anything going his way and hasn't had any consistent storytelling. Is this finally the moment for Bronson Reed to take off and for his WWE career to see a bit of a resurgence on the main roster?
Yeah, you have to. At this point, the man's a monster. He's got all the things that people would want. He's unique, and I think that Triple H now can craft and mold what he can do with him. I'm excited to see what it's going to bring. It has to deliver, and I think he will. Bronson Reed is a rising star, and I think that he can do a lot of things, and it'll be nice to see with some good creative what ends up happening.
As far as Monday Night Raw wins, I thought Monday Night Raw was a good enough show. I really felt like the Bronson Reed Seth Rollins angle was kind of the poignant moment, and that happened very early. The next thing that really caught my eye was Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley standing tall. If you went and followed anything on social media afterwards, they posted the Terror Twins, and I kind of like that for them. I'm curious what your thoughts are with both of them kind of going their own way, but having each other's back as they finish kind of taking care of this chapter with the Judgment Day. Rhea Ripley obviously wants vengeance on Liv Morgan and Dominic. Damian Priest wants vengeance on Finn Balor, JD McDonough. Carlito's kind of just there. Carlito to me just kind of doesn't really feel like he necessarily has beef with anybody, but Carlito's involved. What are your thoughts on these two trying to go after each member or each part of the Judgment Day and looking to take out different halves of it?
I think, clearly the Judgment Day could have went a different way if Edge was still there. They kind of told the story of some outsiders, and I just think that it's a perfect way to kind of wrap that story up. Like, you don't need all these guys to be in a faction. It's just perfect. Tell the story of the Judgment Day. They got to where they needed to go, and now the individual stars can go about their business. JD McDonough can do a lot of things down the road, even be a U.S. champion on a different show. So you can do a lot of different things as you introduce new characters. And Finn Balor's a megastar. Like, he can legitimately stand opposite. I mean, it's clear at this point. He gets through, sometimes it's just got to naturally evolve. He gets through Damian Priest, whatever ends up happening there. You don't see him really fighting against Gunther. It's just not a matchup that is really believable. Gunther's going to take on Damian Priest, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, the big dogs. So naturally, the better fit is for Finn Balor to just show up on every show and to challenge Cody Rhodes. That feud will be great. That's money. Everybody would love to see that match. There's a little bit of a backstory that they could tell as well. So that'll be great. Maybe even a Demon return down the road, to get him back in the mix, because we haven't seen the Demon in a long time. So Finn Balor is a megastar, and you can get him back to where he needs to be, even to put over LA Knight. That would be great if Finn Balor gets power hungry and wants to challenge LA Knight, and then LA Knight gets over a little bit. I think that'd be great. Just opportunities for Finn Balor to kind of do more than just be the background guy in the Judgment Day. And then Damian Priest can continue his elevation as being a main event guy, getting into some great feuds and some revenge type stuff was great. Rhea Ripley's a megastar, and she's going to get her revenge on Liv, and it's just all a bunch of nice things that the Judgment Day can do now wrapping up. So they don't need to be together. I'm glad that they're taking it this way. and it's going to be fun to see the next couple months.
It really did feel like Monday Night Raw and SmackDown were kind of shows that were coming off of this reset and trying to continue parts of this reset. And look, we've got a little bit of a weird one-off show with Bash at Berlin coming up, and you're kind of starting to see them work towards that. They've got grand overarching storylines that they are working on right now, but you also have these weird, wonky intermediate ones. So I feel like WWE is in this weird spot where they're writing and they're producing shows and they're trying to produce storylines that are working for two masters. And you've seen some of that on SmackDown when we've got Kevin Owens announced versus Cody Rhodes at Bash at Berlin. I don't necessarily like face-face matchups for championships. It's hard to build those. So look, both of these guys, incredibly high talent. I want to get your sense. Do you like this? Do you like Cody Rhodes basically offering Kevin Owens a championship match and Kevin Owens saying, no, I don't deserve it? And then Nick Aldis stepping in saying, yeah, you do. Here you go. And this is what we're going to get in a couple of weeks at Bash at Berlin.
Yeah, look, Kevin Owens deserves it. I mean, I don't like the whole no type thing. Kevin should be like, yeah, he should have like kicked the ropes, got hyped, and said, something along the lines of, if I take this opportunity, I'm coming for the belt. I just thought that this aw shucks, no, we're friends thing. I get it, but it's a match I want to see. This is kind of like one of those things now with Cody. You kind of got to figure out what's the next feud for him because there's so much going on that you're like, there's nobody really on SmackDown that can have a story with him right now. So it's fascinating to see what's going to be next. So now I wonder if he just enters into a phase before Survivor Series where it's just like this, where these are guys I just want to fight as we get the next main event type guy.
You know what I really wish they would have did is at SummerSlam, you'd have had Cody kind of fight through members of the New Bloodline, right? Like, I feel like you could have prolonged all of that. And you could have just kind of had Roman menacing in the background. You didn't need to bring him back right away and have him have contact with Solo. But you could just kind of have him menacing in the background. Do weird stuff. You know how like they did with Sting back in the day where Sting would be in the rafters and you just kind of see a quick glimpse of him and then he'd disappear? You could just kind of have Roman walking through background shots looking angry. You could have Roman just kind of taking care of things, like conducting business in the background. And having Solo's paranoia go through the roof while Cody is just dispatching Tangaloa, and then working his way up to Jacob Fatu, and then working to Solo for that specific match to come later on down the line. I just feel like you could have did things a little bit different there because now I feel like Cody's in this vortex. You don't really have anybody big enough for him to face. So now you're going to have him facing faces. And we don't really like that. Heel versus face is done for a reason. It's because it's really good storytelling. These guys can make it work. I'm just not a fan. I feel like we could have did different things. And then Roman comes out to close out SmackDown and obviously has his eyes set on Solo. He ended up taking chairs to the Bloodline. I thought this was interesting. No Jacob Fatu, kept completely separate from everybody in the Bloodline. He was not there. If he was there, he was not shown on screen. Tamatanga just got annihilated. Solo ends up leaving the ring while Roman goes on a rampage. I like this. I like this version of Roman. Obviously, Roman is a face, but Roman is pissed. And Roman is doing whatever it takes to dismantle this new bloodline. I thought this was done well. I enjoyed this. I thought this was really, really good. What do you think about this new Roman, this guy who's out for vengeance? Almost reminds me, if you were writing a comic book character, almost reminds me of a more extreme Batman. Just a guy who is predicated on taking care of what has to be taken care of at all costs. Doesn't matter.
It was great, man. The crowd's ready. He's about to be probably one of the biggest baby faces. It's going to be interesting as he coincides with Cody Rhodes, and it's great to see. It's another big star. It's crazy just how over he is and just how important he can be to a company, man. It's just great to see. And now it'll just do wonders for the new bloodline and things like that with new members coming in. And when Jacob Fatu comes back, everybody thinks he's a superstar in waiting. And, it's just really, and the intriguing thing from this week in WWE is Triple H said, if everything's kind of lining up the way we think, and we still haven't even introduced The Rock yet, The Rock story's coming too. So you look at it and you say, he's like, if everything's going to come to fruition, he's like, don't hold your breath, because it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. And I just can't wait to see it. And that's all you can ask for is we genuinely love what's coming next. We can't wait for Raw. Can't wait to see what's next in the story. And that's all you can ask for. They built the anticipation so great that it's going to be wild when the next few months take place.
Before we hit on AEW, was there anything else that stuck out to you on WWE's program, whether it was Monday Night Raw or whether it was Friday Night SmackDown?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see now how DIY continues to grow in the tag team. Pretty deadly match was great to see. You definitely have a bunch of mid-card tag teams that can elevate. I thought SmackDown was interesting. Andrade is somebody that, Carlos Escobar is great. I think that a lot of or Santos Escobar, is going to be somebody that's going to be intriguing for LA Knight. Santos Escobar was kind of funny. I thought that was an interesting way to kind of put that in a promo. Andrade, a lot of mid-card guys that can do some very intriguing type stuff. So it'll be fun to see with the tag teams and the women's division as they continue to move forward. Jade Cargill had a nice match. She's got to continue to elevate. And it'll be interesting to see how the Street Profits rebound if the news is true regarding Bobby Lashley. So WWE had a good week. Their roster's stacked, and now a lot more people are being used effectively. And you're hoping that maybe even if there's room for more, just imagine it just opens the door for, hey, if they start cherry picking some other characters, what they could do with them. Oh my God, it was great. And then just real fast, NXT was great. Joe Hendry is just killing it. Ethan Page is killing it. Wes, oh my God, the way that his character has developed. NXT is interesting, where before we would just skip it. Now you almost have to watch it. And they're getting in the conversation. Not show of the week yet, but very intriguing character development and fun stuff going on in NXT as well.
Yeah, NXT has been doing a lot of really good things. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Joe Hendry. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens with Jordan Grace. Those two specifically, I think WWE has their eye on bringing those talents in. Obviously, they've got contracts. They've got to wait. But Joe Hendry sounds like he's staying on NXT television for a while. Let's transition over to AEW real quick. And my thoughts on Dynamite was it was a good show, but it was just a show. When I watch these shows, I'm usually watching to find nuggets, stuff for us to talk about, stuff for us to build a show around. And when I watched this show, I really struggled to find things for us to have a conversation about. I really had to work. And so what that tells me is, yeah, it was good. Yeah, I understand that they had a lot of issues with weather because of where they were at, and a lot of talent couldn't get there. So you put some matches on, you tried to fill out your card as best you could. But to me, it was just a good show. I felt like some of the storylines didn't really get moved along. I felt like the storylines that you did move along, or that you tried to move along, didn't really go anywhere. Like a good instance of that is MJF versus Kyle Fletcher. That was a really good match. I thought Kyle Fletcher really showed himself really well. Does this match do anything really good for MJF? No, it was just a typical MJF match. He did some cheating. He won. He did some dastardly things like spit in Kyle Fletcher's face. To me, though, it didn't really help Kyle Fletcher. It didn't really help move the storyline along between him and Will Ospreay. And for Kyle Fletcher, yeah, he looked good. He lost. It was what it was. Will Ospreay ends up running out. For some reason, there was a barricade at the door. I think that might play dividends later. That might be Don Callis doing that later. That was my initial thought, was Don Callis put the barricade in front of Will Ospreay's door, tried to make it so he couldn't get out. But overall, what did we really move along here? What did we really do? What did we really tell? You're basically 2 weeks away from one of your biggest pay-per-views, and I don't really feel like you added anything to this story. And so when I look at Dynamite as a whole, that's just a microcosm of what the rest of the show really was to me. I just kind of felt like you gave us some good stuff, but it didn't do a whole lot for what you're working towards, which is one of your biggest shows of the year. And coming off of the heels of that, you have one of your other biggest shows of the year. And I don't feel like we're moving fast enough in either one of those directions. What were your thoughts on Dynamite? And am I right, or am I just a little bit out of touch?
No, you're absolutely right. And again, weather impacted, and also the thesis also of some shows is, hey, let's just put let's put matches together and have great wrestling. So you're getting information about, Bryan Danielson, MJF, Will Ospreay. It's great. I love seeing the flag come down for MJF. His character development's great, but you need more. And so this is what really the issue is. You need a stronger mid-card. You need just a little bit more intense storytelling that's going to get places. And to me, it's never good, really, when the backstage drama kind of overshadows. To me, the highlight, I just put in my notes, the highlight that kept me interested was what the hell's going on with Britt Baker behind the scenes fighting MJF's girlfriend. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I would have dragged her ass out there and talked about it. That would have been interesting if Alicia...
Well, here, since you brought that up, I'll give you a little bit of insight. This happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
This was during the hour-long Will Ospreay MJF match. Britt Baker was in the women's locker room. MJF is dating one of the announcers, one of the backstage girls, backstage announcing girls. He's dating her. She was in the girls' locker room. Britt Baker kind of went off on MJF and said some disparaging things. She then went and ran to MJF to tell him. MJF, after the match, went and knocked on the door, said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" They had a bit of a heated conversation. Apparently, they were really good friends at a time. There's some unresolved issues there, and that is kind of where Britt Baker was talking a little bit out of line, it sounds like. And this spilled over where it got really heated between the two. MJF ended up walking off. Sounds like he punched the wall. He was pretty upset. Britt Baker, being upset with MJF's girlfriend, basically threatened to kick her ass. And then HR, I guess, for AEW got involved, and they felt it was necessary to suspend Britt Baker for 2 weeks. They wrote this into the storyline as the Young Bucks suspending her because of stuff going on with Mercedes Moné. If you listen to different people, because there's been multiple reports that have come out from different people, it sounds like it was a lot of much to do about nothing. It sounds like Britt Baker and MJF have some unresolved issues that somebody has some hurt feelings about, and they need to kind of work through them. But really, it sounds like it was much to do about nothing. But you brought it up.
Yeah,
there it is.
I would have had Britt call out MJF, do something about her, call out people, or reference it. Call out all the haters in the back that think they can talk crap. I run this show, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Just opportunities where you can kind of bring the thing that I think AEW could benefit from is a little bit more of a sense of realism. Like it's a pro wrestling show, and it kind of reached a crescendo with MJF and Adam Cole having some fun with it and things like that. But you need a little bit of a sense of the balance of entertainment and wrestling, but also a little bit of some real storytelling that can be drama filled. Like they didn't capitalize on the CM Punk drama. Doesn't it kind of feel like Jack Perry needs to kind of take the next step forward, and it kind of, hasn't been, a situation in which he's kind of jumped off from the push he's getting. It just kind of feels like they can do a little bit more to emphasize the stories that they are telling. And that's well,
it doesn't help when Jack Perry cuts a promo that's supposed to be a pretty intense promo, and it's interfered with a Taco Bell commercial.
Exactly. That's
right. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. That was in my notes.
My man's willing to risk it all for a fucking 7-layer burrito.
Yeah. Exactly. That made my notes too. So exactly. That's the he can't even get a promo. He can't even get a promo off without Taco Bell getting interrupted. And there you go. That's the best encapsulation of what's going on at AEW. One of your biggest guys that's now been in a lot of drama is doing a promo, and Yokiro Taco Bell just has to get their spots in. So that's what you're doing, and that's why you're kind of lagging behind in what's going on in this race right now.
The other note that I ended up making coming away from Dynamite, and I just don't understand this. Like, to me, this is just wonky booking. Daniel Bryan is in a match, or Bryan Danielson, whatever we're calling him nowadays. Daniel Bryan is in a match against Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett is trying to entice this inner fire from him because he's got to get his mind right to take on Swerve Strickland at a big match in 2 weeks. And you got Jeff Jarrett using a chair on him. You got him hitting him in the knees. You got him hitting him in the back. You got him using the chair as his weapon to beat the crap out of him to get him motivated. We're 2 weeks away, and you're using a chair on a guy who's supposed to be your friend, and you're trying to entice this fire out of him by beating him with a chair? Generally, a chair is used to write people off. Instead, you're hitting him in knees. Like this, like, it just, to me, the actions and the booking just don't make sense. Like, what are we doing? You're like, he is supposed to be a baby face, and you're beating him up with chairs, and he's got a match in 2 weeks, and you're trying to tell him that he's got to get fired up and he's got to get in the right place to go on so he can get his mind right to take on this match. Like, these things just don't make sense. In my brain, these things just don't make sense. Like, why are you going to put your body through a meat grinder to go on and have one of your biggest matches, possibly your retirement match, in 2 weeks? Like, it just, sometimes I really want AEW to be good. I really do. And I really loved early AEW. You can go back, you can listen to all of those shows. We sat there and we waxed poetic about it. Nowadays, I just don't understand the booking. To me, sometimes it feels very late stages of WCW booking where you're just kind of scratching your head and you're like, what the hell? We talked about Vince a little bit ago where we'd be like, what the hell was Vince thinking? What was he doing? Sometimes I feel like AEW gets in their own way, and it's sometimes like, what the hell are we doing? What are we thinking here? And for me, to close out on this angle where you've got your babyface wrestler who's got one of his biggest matches coming up at one of your biggest events, getting hit in the knee repeatedly, getting hit in the back repeatedly with a steel chair, just doesn't do it for me. Just doesn't help it make sense for me. I'm not sure if you had the same thought. I'm not sure if you feel the same way with some of AEW's booking, but it was one of those things that was wonky to me, and it was weird, and I just didn't necessarily get it.
Yeah, they got basically what you're saying is they got to do a little bit more in their build up to Wembley, and I hope they will. Yeah,
and look, we're running on a very short window here. We've got a couple of weeks left to get us to where we want to be, where you want to see this 6-hour-long card with 47 matches, because you know it's what it's going to be. Everybody's got to be on the show, so it'll be one of those types of cards where you're gonna pay your $50. You're gonna get your $50 worth because it's gonna be a huge show. But geez, man, I need good matches. I like what WWE does. Smaller cards, but they're premium matches, and they all get their time. And it's more worth it that way. Real quick, what was your show of the week this week?
To me, it was SmackDown. I just thought when you have Roman Reigns, there's no doubt SmackDown show of the week.
I agree with you 110%. SmackDown for me. You want some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
Could this AEW tag team be on the move? The belief is AEW, in AEW, is that Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix will be leaving the company when their contracts expire. Pentagon's contract expires on August 31st, with Rey's expiration date being a little bit murky and coming due sometime after Penta's August 31st date. Right now, sources believe that Rey's contract will end sometime around September this year. People in AEW believe that the tag team will head to WWE. Both wrestlers have been taking steps to license their names, their merchandise, their moves, and other marketable features about themselves. The thought is that this will allow them the ability to head to WWE with their names and keep everything status quo. Fightful Select has provided an update noting that there have been discussions within WWE about bringing Penta and Rey into the company. The report said that it's believed that the Lucha Brothers want to be a package deal with WWE and do not want to start in NXT. One source close to Penta and Rey stated that it wouldn't be surprising to see them in Orlando to prepare for the deflection sooner rather than later. Now, fresh off a big win at SummerSlam, this wrestler has signed an extension with WWE. On Friday night, it was reported that LA Knight has signed a new contract with WWE. LA Knight is your current WWE U.S. champ. He defeated Logan Paul this past Saturday at SummerSlam. Right now, the length and the amount of the contract are not known, just that a new contract was signed. Also, while we were recording, kind of flipping through, looking at a couple of different things, it sounds like Scott D'Amore is now taking over as head of Maple Leaf Wrestling. Josh Alexander is joining him there as well as Jinder Mahal has been booked for a show with them. So Scott D'Amore, the former TNA/Impact president, the guy that everybody loved over there, the thought was he might start his own wrestling company or might do something with Maple Leaf Wrestling. There were some trademarks that were filed with him. Sounds like he is now heading that up. Sounds like Josh Alexander is going to be a key piece there. Sounds like Jinder Mahal is going there as well. So we'll keep some tabs on that. This is something that just recently broke. Again, found it on the internet. Could be news, could be a rumor. Didn't have enough time to really source everything out, but that is the word on the street. And then in some sad news, the wrestling world lost a legend on Friday. Kevin Sullivan, who was famously one of Hulk Hogan's biggest rivals in the 1990s, has sadly passed away. The WWE confirmed his death on Friday morning, writing in a statement that Sullivan was a unique and influential figure in sports entertainment history. They continued saying Sullivan found success both in the ring and behind the scenes with his penchant for far-out ideas that pushed creative boundaries. Sullivan began his amateur career in the 1970s and made a name for himself nationally when he entered Championship Wrestling from Florida in the 1980s. He cut promos as the Prince of Darkness and sparked rivalries with Dusty Rhodes and Barry Windham. Sullivan eventually made his way to WCW in the mid-90s. He kicked off a feud with Hogan that led to some legendary matches between the two. He later got locked in a tense storyline with Chris Benoit as well. That was one of his better ones. It led to the end of his marriage with Woman, who then became Chris Benoit's wife, and you can go read the rest about all of that. In his retirement, he worked as a booker for WCW. A little tidbit on that. In his retirement, he worked for a booker for WCW. A little tidbit there. Brian Pillman, before he went off to WWF, he had a match with Kevin Sullivan, and it was a strap match. It was an I Quit match. And in it, he basically says, "I quit Booker Man." And Booker Man was a term for the guy who works as the booker, who puts the shows together. This match actually pissed Kevin Sullivan off because Brian Pillman just kind of went AWOL. And this was the impetus for the loose cannon character for Brian Pillman. So go check that out. Kevin Sullivan was 74 years old. He was a fantastic promo. He had a lot of dark behind-the-scenes stuff. He did some work in ROH. Damian Priest once did some work with him when he was in ROH as a very young wrestler. Touched a lot of different people. Kevin Sullivan had an awesome mind for the wrestling business. Sadly, he's passed away. That's going to do it for wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We appreciate everything and everyone that supports and listens to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that you heard today, if you love SummerSlam, if you thought that some of the champions could have been done differently, if you feel like you love AEW and you're really supportive of that brand, let us know what you're thinking and what you think of some of the reports of WWE potentially pinching stars when their contract's up, like Ricky Starks and others. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in the future as WWE grows and as AEW still treads water and tries to kick off, Wembley. It's a big show for them, and hopefully they can build momentum because you do want two strong companies. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite audio content, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John McEnroe. Can't wait to fire it up next week for the latest edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.